Many times I will feel like I'll have a sense of really having helped someone. And the other person may have that sense, and we can see the change. And all that I've done is impart knowledge. It doesn't have to just be for situations where, oh, there's a significant clinical problem.
Is it the case that when somebody journals a bit of their life narrative or thinks about some great or sadly traumatic events that perhaps happened to them at whatever stage of life, that there's something accomplished in that action or in that therapy session if they're doing it with a clinician, but that when they go to sleep that night and perhaps in their waking states as well, that the unconscious is working some of that through such that revelations come to mind later, insights come to mind. I'm certainly familiar with the fact that there are certain times of day and evening where my brain is in a bit of a liminal state. It feels like somewhere between sleep and awake. And I just have learned that provided I block against outside sensory input as much as I can, in particular social media and the news, that I'll just be, doing the dishes or preparing coffee or something, and something will come to mind seemingly out of nowhere, right? It's not always a great insight. In fact, it's rarely a great insight, but it always takes me a bit by surprise, sometimes a little bit of delight, sometimes a little bit of shock, like, wow, like where did that come from?
Because it came from your unconscious mind, right? It was invisible to you, then it got thrown up, and you're, whoa, and you realize it while in the midst of doing something relatively mundane, right? Because during the day, you're engaging. Your brain is highly engaged, which is great, but it doesn't leave a lot of room, right, for the unconscious mind to do its millions and millions of things a second that can help you figure things out, which is the same reason. I mean, it's uncanny. Any psychiatrist will tell you this, that a person will come in and say, it's strange, all of a sudden when I can finally relax, like that's when I have a panic attack, right? Or they don't know, like then I can finally relax and I go, and then my heart's beating fast and I'm sweating, right? Because that's when the panic attacks come. If the person is laboring under something that is causing them this sort of constant distress, when you stop focusing outward and you sort of settle into an inward state, then the things that are underneath the surface are going to come to the surface. And if there's something really bothering you that your brain is very upset about or very afraid of, what does it throw up to the surface? A panic attack, right? But if you're in a good place, you're taking care of yourself, you're in a generative stage, you're in a safe environment, then when you stop putting all the attention outward. So we imagine then salience changes, and instead of a lot of the salience being outward, it starts to be inward, and you're just sort of meditative, you're washing the dishes, right? And there's room then for your unconscious mind to throw something important to the surface. It's the exact opposite of how people can't remember something if they're trying to think of it. I mean, we all go through this, like, I can't remember that person's name or that restaurant or whatever it is. Try to keep thinking about it and see if you figure it out, right? The answer is not in your conscious mind. So if you keep bringing your conscious mind to bear, you just generate frustration, right? But then when you stop thinking about it, the answer is there inside of you. Oh, I remember now, right? So that's how if we have the conscious mind engaged in something it's not going to figure out, right? Then it doesn't figure the thing out, right? And that works for our problems too. That's why a person can say, I thought about that for 10 years. No, you ruminated about it for 10 years. It just ran over and over and over in the conscious mind. And how ironic, right? It prevents understanding.
So it's very clear to me that asking certain kinds of questions about oneself and one's self-narrative, life history, essentially, can be very beneficial in the moment or moments of doing that practice, as well as the subconscious, or I guess the appropriate way to refer to it is the unconscious, right?
Yeah.
Okay.